always his work my father cared about. His research. He tried to save his work. I tried to save him.
Hello there, Sera from 17 once again, introducing you to my Gears of War 3 Insane Difficulty video walkthrough. And this is Act 1, Chapter 1, entitled Anchored. And we are on the Sovereign, which is basically a giant aircraft carrier where the remnants of the coalition, which is the COG, and the civilians that wanted to follow are now holding up and trying to survive, because obviously they sunk Jacinto, and you know, the end is nigh, everything is falling to pieces, so everybody is kind of scavenging. And this is your introduction to real Marcus when we're now awake. That was of course a dream section. And you're also introduced to the less linear level design of this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not Deus Ex. There aren't 3 different versions, you know, ways to play around the level, but there's still a lot more freedom this time around to look for collectibles, to talk to people, just to interact with the world, to flesh it out a little bit more. And this is probably one of the best aspects of the game, because in the last Gears there wasn't too much of exposition knocking about, there wasn't too many opportunities to talk to people. And I'm super glad that they've put this kind of stuff in. A lot of people will probably be like, hey, fuck this, I want to get to the action, I want to shoot some things, and all that kind of stuff, but this definitely adds weight to the story that you're playing. It feels a lot less like popcorn, and a lot more like character development. So it is one of the cool things in the game, and it's also a really nice contrast to a slow section from that very frenetic start. So already you've been shown that there are peaks, there are valleys, so on and so forth, and it's got a really good ebb and flow to it that just makes it seem like whenever you're doing something and you start to realise you're doing it, you're then doing something else, so it doesn't become boring, and it's a masterful example of pacing in a campaign. But here is Chuck Norris, or Dominic Santiago as he's called, who's now got a rocking beard. It's quite a manly bit of face hair there, and I do believe it's bulletproof. A friend of mine, when he played as him, pretty much was impervious to death because of the beard, so never underestimate the amount of facial hair one man can assume. And I do think that Marcus has probably got some beard envy, because you'll notice he's looking a bit unshaven himself, but it doesn't quite look like he can grow very much. And then there's Dom there with that giant majestic beard. But enough of the silliness. This is on Insane. To unlock Insane, which is a question I always get on some guides, how do you unlock the difficulty, blah blah blah, you've got to beat the game. I don't know if you have to beat it on anything other than any difficulty. I would say try on normal or hardcore. I beat the game on hardcore, I unlocked Insane. I've played every Gears of War on hardcore and then it unlocked Insane. It's just kind of how it works. And a nice little touch in this game as well is being able to interact with the world physically and getting a response from it. And it's something that you want to do, because there are challenges that are set that will get you points for doing it. So explore as best you can, and make sure you try and examine anything. But Insane, in a nutshell, is not too bad. The first thing I will say about this game is if you've played it in co-op, and if you've played it in, you know, large numbers of people, so if you've had 4-player co-op and you've gone on something like hardcore, it is going to make you think that this game can be absolutely cruel, absolutely merciless, and extremely difficult. But do not worry, the game does scale to more people in it. It does make it harder, it does make it a hell of a lot more bullshit, and when you play on your own, you're going to have just this massive wash of euphoria when you realise that it's balanced, it's very scaled down, and it is nowhere near as intense as it is with friends. So one of the luxury of that is its perfect game balance, and also it's almost a completely different game with friends, because enemies that were easy now become challenging because they take that little bit more damage, they give more damage, all that kind of cool stuff. And it makes for an interesting co-op experience, which I'll probably talk about in a later video. But the best advice I can give you with Insane is to always fight at the longest distance you can. You will die extremely quickly if you are not. If you're getting shot, they will not mess about. Their aim is really good. They will kill you in maybe 5 to 10 bullets if you're unlucky. If they've got a better weapon, they'll kill you in less. And if you're not in cover, you're dead, effectively. You always need to be in cover. You always need to be thinking where the next piece of cover is when you're not in cover, to make sure that you get your ass covered. And as long as you can use cover, keep your distance, and just play intelligently, it isn't too bad. The only problem is, as with old Gears games, it will throw you into situations where it's not necessarily the enemies themselves that are difficult, it's the situation that you're in. For instance, if there isn't good cover, if you kind of get sucker punched into a scenario where you can't move back quick enough, and you get insta-killed, and Splash damage. Splash damage is horrific on this game. Anybody familiar with the original Gears will know that if a boomer fired at you, and he didn't even have to hit you with the boom shot to kill you because the splash was so horrific, and so was the damage, well, this game is the exact same. And there's an alambant called, what's it called now? A gunker, that's his name. And he's basically a lambent butcher, but he can fire this big ball of jizz or whatever it is. I don't really know what it is, but he can throw it at a ridiculous length, and when it lands, it gives a huge amount of radius damage. You need to get your ass away from that, but something I will be discussing in later videos. So, the very first enemy here is a new one. They're called polyps. They're kind of like wretches, only they're a little bit more passive, and they'll just run directly for you and rely on the fact that they blow up very quickly to try and kill you. This first encounter is with a dredge, who is kind of the Swamp Thing dude. He's kind of your standard lambent who, he's got a gun but it comes out of his arm. He also can mutate when he dies, so be careful of that. But on this early level he doesn't mutate at all because it's introducing you to the mechanic of the lambent. And the weak spots for these guys is anything that glows and their face. So when all else fails, shoot them in the face. If the face isn't working, shoot them in the glowing spot. And always take your time in the environments. There's no rush to get through it. You are not timed. Always find ammo, always find grenades, because funnily enough, the storyline is all about scavenging. It's all about, you know, not having ammo, not having supplies or resources. This guy as well, I start to shoot him, but I realise he's not shooting me, so I realise there's a tutorial, and I go and saw him in half. So save your ammo on that guy, and just go and chainsaw him. But one thing I would never ever recommend is using the chainsaw on Insane. You're just going to get killed. The only time you should be using it is when you can use nothing else, and something is literally 2 yards away from you, and you do it out of panic. If you're actively trying to chainsaw people, you're either clearly insane, or you're trying to do a crazy challenge run, and I'm familiar with a few of them on the original Gears, but if you're just going for the achievement, don't mess about, keep your distance, and just take cover as soon as you start to take damage, because your Crimson Omen will fill up so quickly on this difficulty, it's not even funny. It really isn't. Anyhow, back to what I was saying about the ammunition. Because this game is about scavenging, and because this is, you know, dire moments for the cog, ammo is actually a legitimate challenge in this game. There are moments where you will find yourself completely out of ammo, and you will have to put yourself in a danger spot just to get bullets to kill what you're fighting. And the very last boss, which I'm not going to ruin for anybody, I'm just going to mention that you use the Hammer of Dawn against it, and if you do not have a Hammer of Dawn for a certain checkpoint, you will effectively make that last boss the hardest thing since, you know, Jesus' beard. It is just unbelievably stupid, and I would not wish that on anybody. Me and a bunch of my friends had it, and it was horrific. And it does make it challenging. It kind of makes it challenging like Halo does on Legendary, where the weapons don't have anywhere near as much ammo as they do on them in the earlier difficulties. The only difference here is, I don't believe the difficulty has any effect on the ammo, there's just a hell of a lot less of it in the game. And one thing I will point out as well is the normal Lancer, the one, you know, the workhorse of the cog, you're not going to be seeing it as frequently as you would in older games. And you're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more hammer bursts, a hell of a lot more retro lancers, because it's once again, it's adding towards this feel of desperation, this feel of scavenging for technology. And the only way to change this, if you do like the original Lancer, and I would recommend you doing this, is to actually keep on to a Lancer at all times. If you can keep one through the game, you will be able to use the ammo boxes to refill it, because it's classed as a cog weapon. And that way, you don't have to rely on the hammer burst, and you don't have to rely on the retro Lancer. And don't get me wrong, both those guns are really good at what they do, it's just the Lancer is so much better in my opinion, because it always comes with a nice clip, it does good damage, it's got an easy active reload, and it's got the chainsaw. I mean, it does everything you could possibly need. And a couple of strategies you'll see me utilising on this game are, I actually swapped my shotgun out for the hammer burst if there's nothing more exotic around. And the reason for this is, I don't use the shotgun or the double barrel shotgun, the sawn-off. And if you're playing on casual or normal, use the shotguns to your heart's content, they're fantastic. But if you're playing on Insane, if you're using a shotgun and you're at the range where the shotgun's effective, you're playing it wrong. And that's not me being a dickhead, that's me just telling you that you're insane, because you will die up close against these locusts on Insane so very quickly that it isn't even funny. You want to always have as much distance as possible, and a hammer burst is going to enable you to be both accurate, damaging, and have distance. So it's something you want to really avoid if you can. And the Crimson Omen that you just saw on the wall there, that signifies that there's going to be collectibles around that area. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be bang there, but they'll be somewhere in that vicinity. If you've already picked them up, they disappear, which is really gay. So I can't show too many people that much. But this is the end of the first section to chapter 1. I'll see you in the next video, guys. I hope you like this guide. It's a fun one, and you take care now.